Good morning and welcome to Engineer Construction Lecture Hub. I hope you had a nice rest. Thank God for the gift of life. Uh, there is something I want to discuss on today. It's a very important and interesting topic. I deem it necessary to come up live to discuss it. So if you're just joining us, today we want to talk about how to establish a good working relationship, at site. That's the topic for today. Now, usually when we talk about so when we talk about working relationship at site, we are talking about how the cordiality, among the workforce, because that also enhances a good or high morale in the working environment. So basically we want to look at some of those aspects or some of those routines that we need to do in order to establish a good working environment at site. Like, as you know, construction involves a lot of activities. All right, the primary objective is to synchronize all of these activities towards achieving one particular goal. And that is being spearheaded by maybe the manager, the site manager, or the contractor. Because the end product is to have that project completed. But before the completion, there should be this harmonious relationship that should exist among the workforce, so that that job can be worked on smoothly. So the first that we're going to look at today on how to establish a good working environment at site is holding toolbox meeting. Holding toolbox meeting. Now, as you know, toolbox meeting is an essential component in our construction activities. Toolbox meeting has to do with the day-to-day activities, the day-to-day interaction, prior to construction. All right, that is toolbox meeting. And in toolbox meeting, information as regards to the day's activities will be discussed. All right, now contributions will be made. Then also the day's tasks will be defined. Then those areas, the different components of that day's tasks will be given information or will be briefed on what that day's activities entails. The challenges that they will encounter will be discussed as well. All right, then professional advice will be given to them on how they can surmount those challenges at site. All right, so toolbox meeting is an essential component in establishing a good working environment at site, because in toolbox meeting you will see that the allocation of duties, allocation of tasks will be made. Then areas where they have that is ambiguous to them, they have to disclose it. Then clarity will be made there at site. Then also in toolbox meeting, it creates that harmonious relationship among the workforce. Because like I said, construction involves a lot of activities. Primary objective is to see how to align, to bring to synchronize all of these activities towards the realization of a project. Okay, so if peradventure any section is having lapses, or having some form of challenges, it will automatically affect the running of that construction activity. So it's important in the toolbox meeting, some of these areas will be highlighted, okay, and it will be addressed there, okay, by giving an holistic view of all of these areas. Then each of these sections will also be educated, okay, will also be given information, the latest information on how to handle those challenges in their various departments. Okay, so all of these are captured under toolbox meeting. All right. Now, toolbox meeting is an integral part of our construction activity. It's a day-to-day routine. Okay, it is something that it should be practiced, irrespective of how complex that project is. Okay, be it a small project or a big project, it is important to hold toolbox meeting on a daily basis, because it is absolutely wrong coming to site and having workers coming to site at different times of the day, and resuming work. It is not proper. Okay, that will not give that project the right flow. Okay, there should be this culture of every workforce, that is all the workforce coming to work at a particular time, okay, of the day. Then this toolbox meeting ought to be held at a particular time of the day prior to construction, okay, so that every member of that workforce or that crew should be at site. Okay, now once they are on site, then toolbox meeting can be held. Okay, you can hold your toolbox meeting where issues will be discussed, briefings will be made, okay, so that when the workers are going to site to commence that work, they will be going fully, okay, and that everybody will have in mind, okay, the task to achieve for that particular day, okay, because definitely if there are carryover, in case of eventualities, it means that work for that particular day will be moved to the next day, and that will truncate the sequence of work in terms of completion time. Okay, so but if toolbox meeting is practiced, you see that all of this workforce will have that understanding on how to program themselves, in the realization of that day's tasks. So it is very, very important that we hold toolbox meeting. It is one of the way we can establish a good working environment, at site. Okay, so that is that. So if you're just joining us, we are discussing a very important topic as regards to construction. Okay, so the first I've talked about is holding toolbox meeting. Okay, it is very, very essential, okay, as far as construction work is concerned. Okay, so we are also looking at the area of listening to workers. Okay, listening to workers is also a way of establishing a good working environment, okay, at site. Listening to workers. Now, that workers are those that, generally that carries this construction work. Okay, they carry out this construction work. So as a leader, okay, as a supervisor, as the engineer on site, it is important that you listen to these workers, because there are some cases where I've talked about toolbox meeting. Now, I will make reference back to toolbox meeting to buttress my point on this aspect of listening to workers. Now, you see that during toolbox meeting, workers are there to air their views, as regards to the work. Okay. Now, it is the duty of the supervisor or the engineer on site to now enlighten them, to give them that information that they require. Okay, that is creating that room for them to hear them. That is listening to them. Okay, you have to listen to the workers. Okay, that is the way you can be able to, give them that sense of belonging at site. Okay, because like I said, construction involves a lot of activities, so you have to give them that attention at site by listening to them. Okay, make them feel important, because that is the way you can motivate them. Okay, that is a very nice way of motivating the workforce, having in mind that the primary objective is the realization of that project. So you must listen to the workers. Okay, give them that listening ear, give them that attention when necessary. Okay, give them that room to be able to communicate to you. Okay, to communicate if there are challenges that they encounter in the course of working at site. Give them that listening ear. Okay, give them that attention to hear them out. Okay, that is the way you can also understand their challenges. Also understand if they are actually carrying out that work in line with the standards. Okay, so that is a better way also of establishing a good working environment at site. All right, it is very, very important that we listen to these workers, the artisans, the general workforce. Okay, you don't create that atmosphere of of having your own say as final. You must listen to them. You have to get their own findings in the course of work, because experience is gotten over time. When you consistently do a particular work for a very long time, you gain experience. Okay, now most of these workers, these skilled workers, they worked over time. All right, and they have garnered some amount of knowledge in that line of duty. Okay, so you must give them that listening ear for them to communicate. Okay, then you now have to make your decision based on their findings, based on their what you have gotten from them in terms of their challenges and all of that at site. So it's important as a supervisor, as an engineer on site, to listen to workers, listen and hear them out. All right, that is also a way you can be able to establish that good working environment at site, because you must make them to be self-motivated. Okay, they ought to be self-motivated, because once they are motivated, that is a better way of getting a good output, okay, for that day's work. All right, because cumulatively you eventually achieve the target for that particular project. Okay, so listening to workers is very, very important. You're welcome. Thank you. If you're just joining us, we are treating a topic on how to establish a good working environment at site. Okay, so this is basically to bring that awareness, to ensure that we have a good construction practice, because that is the way we can be able to enhance construction, a better and a functional structure at the end of the day. Because when the workforce, are given that sense of belonging, you see them doing the right thing, you see them doing the things according to what they are being instructed to do. Okay, that is a better way of enhancing or establishing a good working environment at site. Okay, so that is that. So I've talked about having toolbox meeting as one of the components of establishing a good working environment at site, because toolbox meeting creates that atmosphere for interaction. Okay, you must understand that day's job needs to be achieved. And how will it be achieved? The modalities, the processes, the right tools to use, how to behave at site, all of that will be highlighted during the toolbox meeting. So it's a very integral part of our construction practice, okay? And I said that that is one of the ways of establishing a good working environment, at site. Then I've talked about listening to workers. Okay, you must, as the engineer, as a leader, as a supervisor, as a manager at site, it is important to listen to the workers, all right? Because the workers are the ones carrying out this construction work, all right? So it is important you listen to them, get their own views about that work, okay? Which I also narrowed down to toolbox meeting, because in toolbox meeting, the workers are expected to talk about their experiences, their challenges they faced in the previous day's work. Okay, it will be discussed on that day toolbox meeting. All right, so as the engineer, the supervisor, you have to address those challenges right there, in the toolbox meeting. Okay, so that they will have that solution, to in terms of profiling for that particular kind of challenge, in order to overcome that challenge. So that can be discussed in the toolbox meeting. So you listen to them during toolbox meeting, get their own opinion, profile solution to them, give them guidelines on how to go about it, and you see the work, going on smoothly, okay, without any form of hindrances or obstruction. Because construction work, activities are arranged sequentially. They are time bound, okay, okay. Every day have their various tasks to achieve, okay, because if a project is expected to last for a period of 2 years, now you see that 2 years duration is being splitted into days, okay. Now each of these construction activities is allocated to a particular duration, okay. Now if peradventure there is no conducive atmosphere or environment to achieve that activities for that duration, you see that there will be a room for carryover, okay. And when this carryover occurs, by moving activities to the other time, okay, of that work duration, you see that it will truncate the completion time. Okay, so one of the ways we can be able to avoid all of this is having toolbox meeting. It is very, very important, because in toolbox meeting is a day-to-day routine. Okay, now it is done usually the morning hours. Usually it depends on the duration. You can have a 1 hour toolbox meeting. You can have 30 minutes toolbox meeting. Okay, depending on the nature of the work for that particular day. That will also determine the timing, okay, because it is in the toolbox meeting that discussions, okay, will be done based on that day's work, and this discussion is between the workforce and the leading force, that is the supervisor, the engineers, and all of that, okay, because every day's work comes with their own challenges, their own peculiarities. So it is important that the workers need to be briefed, all right. They need to be briefed on what that day's job entails, so that they can be able to know how to surmount those challenges, all right. Because also the workers need to be celebrated, when a certain milestone is met, okay. Meeting a milestone, it is important to celebrate the workforce, okay. That is also a way to motivate them, to achieve the one ahead, okay. So some of these I've mentioned are ways we can create or establish a good working environment, at site, all right. Then also we also talk about avoid argument, okay. Avoid argument. Now you see that argument when there is misunderstanding, okay, at site, it brings about argument. You're welcome. You're welcome. Welcome to the Engineer Construction Lecture. This is a live streaming. If you're just joining us, we are discussing on how to establish a good working environment, at site, because that is the only way we can be able to achieve our target for that particular project. Okay, so we've talked about holding a toolbox meeting. We've talked about listening to the workforce, okay, the workers, the artisans. You listen to them, you hear them out in areas where they're having challenges, okay, and see how to provide solutions to overcome those challenges, okay. Then also the next point that we want to discuss is avoid argument at site, okay, because construction involves a lot of activities. Now these activities, while trying to carry them out, that there is usually conflict of interest, of opinion, okay. Now that will now lead to argument. All right, so as the supervisor, the engineer on site, you try as much as possible to minimize, okay, the aspect of argument at site, because once there is argument at site, you see that there will be distraction, okay. There will be distraction because the target or the objective will be kind of affected, because once there is distraction, you see that the workforce, the workers will not have that full attention, to that particular task that they are, trying to carry out. So argument brings distraction aside, because once there is a form of double-mindedness, aside, it retards the pace of work. Okay, so as a supervisor, the engineer on site, you try as much as possible to create that atmosphere within the workforce, to prevent that room for argument. Because once there is argument, you see that placement of materials, placement of reinforcement, placement of concrete, you see there will be errors. Okay, errors are bound to occur once there is any form of argument aside, and that will not give a good working environment. Okay, because once the environment is not conducive enough as a result of as a result of argument, you see that work will be affected. Okay, the results that ought to be produced will be hampered. Okay, so it is important we try as much as possible to prevent every form of argument at site. Okay, it is very, very important. Okay, so that is also a way we can establish a good working environment by creating argument free in outside. All right, so that is that. Then we also look at you have to protect your reputation. Okay, you have to protect your reputation as the site engineer. Okay, as the leader at site, it is important you protect your reputation, because the way and manner you do work, okay, you carry out your day-to-day activities, is being judged by the workforce. Okay, so you don't have to compromise at site. All right, as the engineer on site, the right materials ought to be used. The quality of materials should be maintained. Okay, there should be no form of cutting of corners, okay, at site, because your reputation matters most. Okay, as a leader, as a supervisor, as the engineer on site, as the architect on site, it is important that you put your reputation first, before any other thing. Okay, by putting your reputation first means that you don't have to compromise at site. Okay, the right materials ought to be used. The right quantity of materials ought to be used. the quality of materials need to be maintained, okay? Things ought to be placed at the right, places. Issues ought to be treated, rightly, okay? Issues ought to be treated rightly, not a situation where you'll be seen as, being a two-sided person, okay? You ought to make your mark straight at sight. That is a way you can protect your reputation, because the way you handle matters, the way you do things at sight will give that impression in the minds of the workforce of the personality you are, okay? So, and that will also speak for you, as time goes on. So it is important we maintain a good reputation at site. That is also a way we can be able to establish a good working environment, because once you build certain level of confidence in the heart of the workforce, okay, that is also creating a conducive atmosphere, working atmosphere at site. Because you see that whenever this worker sees you on site, they are being motivated, and once they are being motivated, you see that they will carry out their work very well, because you see that there are some persons in your presence. Once they see you, you don't even need to instruct them. They know what to do, okay, because of the reputation you have built, okay? Because of the reputation you have built, they know what to do, all right? So you directing them is just giving an additional information to them, because that reputation you have built has given them that guide to be able to know what to do at every given point in time at site. And this will help in the realization of that project, in terms of ensuring that that project is constructed in the right way, and also completing it at the right time, okay? So building a good reputation is very, very important at site. It's very, very important. That is also a way we can establish a good working environment, at site. All right. So the next we are going to also look at is having division of labor. Okay, we should have division of labor. That is also a way we can establish a good working environment at site. Having division of labor. Now, once in the absence of division of labor, there will be a lot of confusion, because you see people venturing into areas that are not their area of interest or area of specialization, okay? But defining these various duties, or these various areas, defining them is very, very important, because that is also a way to promote efficiency and effectiveness at site, okay? Now, you must have division of labor at site. The carpenters should know that they have to focus on carpentry work and not to venture into reinforcement aspect of construction, okay? Because once they devote their energy more on the carpentry, you see that so much result will be gotten from that aspect. Although you see that carpentry and reinforcement work also work together. What I mean work together, they can work simultaneously, okay? Because there are situations where you do your installation of your reinforcement, okay, at one end. As you're progressing, the carpenter can also start boarding, okay, erecting the formwork from the beginning of where the steel reinforcement work started from, okay? So you see them working together. So in the course of working together, if this division of labor is not created, you see the carpenter trying to venture into the reinforcement aspect of the work, all right? And you see that when that happens, it will hamper the time for that formwork to be completed. Because once attention is divided, you see that that particular work will have to suffer the brunt. Okay, so there should be room for division of labor. So as the leader, as the supervisor, as the engineer on site, it is important to spell out these various divisions, okay, so that they can focus on that area in achieving that particular work. Okay, so because having division of work at site, you see that that is a better way of achieving result. Okay, achieving result for that particular day. Okay, because in a way, in a manner where there are no division of labor, you see conflicting of interest. You see there will be room for argument, because this person will want to bring idea on how to do this particular thing, the other will object, and that will bring delay in the work. All right, so it is important that every area should be spelled out in terms of their duties should be spelled out. There should be no interference, okay, within the workforce. All right, if there is any, it should come from the supervisor or the engineer, because the engineer is there to direct, how this work should go. All right, so it is the engineer that have the prerogative, okay, the right to venture into all of these sections, all of these departments within the construction site, and instruct them on what to do. All right, and when instructing, it should not be authoritative, because these are humans, so you must treat them with some form of dignity. So when trying to communicate to them, you must do it in a modest way, okay, in a way that will be a booster, that will be a booster to them, okay, because there are, whether you like it or not, when treating workforce, you must treat them with all sense of modesty, okay, because there are some, the manner at which you communicate to them can hamper their morale at site. It can bring down the morale at site, and when morale is brought down, it means that that work will be affected. Okay, it should be a morale driven construction work, okay, because once they are being motivated, you see the best coming out of them, you see them putting the best in that work. Okay, so it is important that we look at that aspect critically. So we must ensure that division of labor is maintained at site. Okay, the carpenter should know that they have to take care of carpentry works. Okay, they know their tools, they know the things that is associated to that line of work. Then the bar benders should focus on reinforcement works. They should know that their duties is to install reinforcement, to do generally reinforcement works. Okay, they should just focus on that without venturing into this other section of construction activity. Okay, then the concrete mixing bay should also focus on batching and production of concrete. All right, those conveying the concrete should also focus on moving their concrete without interfering with the placement of the concrete. That is, in terms of the mason in charge of vibrating and also preparing that concrete. Okay, because there are some situations whereby you see those transporting this concrete either by wheelbarrow or by other means. You see them trying to direct the mason on how to, or the mason, okay, on how to compact, on how to take level and all of that. You see, all of that can create distraction, and you see that it will hamper that particular activity. okay, and in some cases it can also create some form of errors, because once the person doing that particular work is confused, you see that carrying out that work will be affected. So generally, the essence of having division of labor is for these workers to pay 100% attention to that particular task given to them. Okay, they ought to pay their 100% attention to their task. Okay, that is observing division of labor aside, and that is also a way we can establish a good working, environment at site. So as the engineer, during toolbox meeting, you must define their areas of specialization, their area of, their area where they are expected to focus on, and what they are expected to achieve for that particular day. Because once they have that task to achieve, you see that their mind will be focused on the realization of that particular task. So it is very, very important that we look at that aspect. Then another aspect I want to also look at, in establishing a good working environment, is to explain the task, or to explain the goal for that particular project. Okay, on a day-to-day basis, it is important you give them that awareness, on the plan for that particular project. The plan now talks about the what that project entails, the scope of that project, okay, what the project is all about, how to achieve the project, that is the methodology, ought to be disclosed to the workforce, okay, the time bound of that project. Now, if definitely there are designs, there are plans, you have to educate them on this particular stage that need to be completed, okay, before this other stage can commence. All of these ought to be spelled out to the workforce, and that also takes us back to toolbox, okay, toolbox meeting, because it is in the toolbox meeting on day-to-day basis that these plans will be well explained. Because you know that most times, due to things we encounter even outside the site, you see that there is room for for one to forget certain things, okay, or certain works or certain tasks at site. It is this toolbox meeting that create that awareness on a day-to-day basis, okay, that create that consciousness in the minds of the workers, a kind of renew their knowledge in that particular line of work. And also in the toolbox meeting, it creates that awareness to educate or to update the minds of this workforce, because there is need to, days goes by, okay, there are new innovations and all of that, okay. You don't have to stick to one particular way of achieving a particular task. You must be versatile, all right. So as the trend goes, you need to flow in that pace as well. So sorry for the sudden abrupt disruptions was due to network. I'm back. So as I was saying, I was talking about setting the goals, okay, the plan, okay, for that project. All right. So it's important that during toolbox meeting, these workers need to be informed on a better way. You have to educate them on a better way to achieve a particular construction task, okay. That will also have a positive impact on that project, okay, because construction, whatever error that is incurred at every stage of work should be addressed at that stage, okay, because if it is left unaddressed, and you keep on, you keep on, you continue the construction while that error is there, it have a way of affecting that structure at the end of the day. So it is important that errors should be corrected, lapses should be addressed. Okay, that is the only way, the way you can, create a good working environment, at site. All right, so it's important we set our plans clear, we make it clear and concise, to the workforce, because the instructions given to these persons, there are instructions given to them during the toolbox meeting. Then there is also instruction given to the workforce during construction. All right, so there should be this synergy, okay, between the leaders and the workforce. That is also a way we can create a good working environment at site. Once this synergy is not there, you see that there will be loads of lapses at site. Okay, so it is important we ensure that a good working relationship is created at site. That is a way we can, establish a good working environment at site. So if you're just joining us, you're welcome. You're welcome to the Engineer Construction Lecture Hall. This is a live streaming, and we are discussing how to establish a good working environment at site. So as you know, construction involves a lot of activities, and we've talked about so many of these factors that needs to be considered, to enhance a good working environment at site. And we've talked about toolbox meeting. We've talked about listening to workers. Okay, we've talked about avoiding arguments at site, because once there is argument at site, it delays the timing for the completion of that day's task, and that will now warrant a carryover, okay, to the next day. And once there is carryover, you see that it will have a way of truncating the sequence of work and the timing for that for the works. Okay, so avoid argument at site. So as a leader, as a supervisor, you must ensure that you create a room that is devoid of argument, because argument retards the pace of work. All right, because once there is conflicting of interest and opinion, it brings about argument. And when this argument comes on board, you see that the sequence of work will be truncated, the timing for that work will also be affected, okay, and errors will be bound to occur. All right, so that is the aspect of avoiding argument. All right, then we've talked about having a plan. All right, having a plan, explaining the plan to the workforce. Okay, we also talked about division of labor. All right, there should be division of labor. Every worker should know their area of, or their duty post, where they are designated. Okay, because once you define their various designation, that will give them the sense of direction, and that will also give them the sense of commitment, because they are committed to achieve that day's task. Okay, so once they are being given areas of specialization, once they are being designated to a particular task, you see them, focusing on that particular task and how to achieve it timely. Okay, there will be time consciousness in them, in achieving that particular task for that day. So these are some of the factors that will enhance a good working environment at site. All right. Then also you see in the area of specialization, that will also make those in the various sections to focus on their tasks. like in the area of the mixing bay, you see the concrete mixing operator knowing that his duty is to operate the concrete mixer. Okay, those loading the materials will also know that their duty is to load the materials and not to, operate the concrete mixer. Okay, now you see those, transporting materials will also know that their duties is to transport materials. The storekeeper will know that his duty is to take records of materials that goes out and the materials that comes in. He takes inventory of materials at site. Okay, so you see that all of these sections will focus on their areas. This is a way to optimize their work. Okay, because once you have division of labor, you see that they will have their various areas to focus on. Okay, and once they focus on, you see that better results will be achieved at the end of the day. Okay, so if there are questions as regards to the topic of discourse, you can drop them at the comment section. Answers will be provided. So at this point, I'm going to stop here for today. I appreciate every one of you. I can see you online. Thank you so much for your time. You being online gives that room for continuity. So I intend to come up with some series to be discussed on live sections like this, because I got some complaints that enough time is not given to some of the lectures. Now, I decided to be coming up live so I can, discuss some of these topics, exhaustively. All right, so that we can have an holistic view of that particular topic. So, as time goes on, I tend to be coming up live to discuss some of these vital issues, as regards to construction, because this platform is basically designed to provide vital informations that will enhance a good construction practice, okay, and also to enhance a better built environment. All right, so I'm going to stop here for today. Please, if there are questions, you have to, send them across, for further clarification. But before I go, I will also want to throw light on this particular aspect in our construction, especially in our setting out, excavation, and concrete works. These three stages, they come, sequentially. Now, I want you to understand that when you're doing your setting out, it is important that you make provision for setbacks. Okay, setbacks that will enable the movement of workers. Okay, in terms of transporting these materials, it is very important we create that setbacks, during setting out. Okay, that is profiling. When we are doing our profiling, we must create setbacks, for easy movement of materials, be it concrete or blocks, or even moving of mortar and all of that. Now, the reason is that especially in a clay soil, you see that when this profile is very close to the excavated area, you see that when activities is being carried out, either by placement of concrete and also, other concrete activities, you see lumps of the excavated materials falling into the concrete, already placed concrete base. Okay, sometimes you see during the pouring in of this concrete, you see these lumps of clay materials, excavated clay materials, falling into these placed concrete. In some cases, some of these messes, they tend to overlook, Okay, they tend to ignore ignore some of this without removing these lumps of clay. Okay, it is important that we remove them because they are not parts of the concrete in any way. The concrete should be devoid of any external material in them. Okay, be it a wooden material, be it a clay material, because for example, if it's a wooden particle, maybe from the off cuts, that gets in contact, with the concrete, you see that over time, after placement, after completion, you see that that wooden material inside of that concrete will tend to, it will decay. It will decay. And when it decays, it creates a void inside of that concrete. And the presence of that void inside of that concrete has already created a weak spot in that concrete, especially in our foundation base. Okay, so when we have that void in our base, it has already made that place to be vulnerable. Okay, it will make that area of that foundation to be prone to to settlement. And when that happens, usually differential settlement can take place. Okay, and differential settlement usually have a direct impact on the well-being of our structure. So we must try as much as possible to give that required ample setbacks in our profile works so that we can have good walkway in transporting this material. Okay, and also we must make sure that during excavation we look at, especially in building works, we ensure that our excavated material is being thrown a little distance away. Okay, those that are within the building should not be much. Okay, should not be piled up much. Okay, rather on the outer side, more of the excavated material should be thrown towards that direction. All right, so that during these other activities, especially the concreting of that foundation, there will be no form of these external materials finding itself with the concrete, because most of our foundation failures are also associated to these issues, because most people they are just after carrying out their work, especially messing. They are just after carrying out that work without trying to do it in the right way. Okay, because except some that have that patience, they can easily remove all of these unwanted materials. Okay, and now place the concrete properly at the required level, and also maintain the right thickness, especially for strip foundation as well as part foundation. All right, so these are some of the areas I wanted to throw light on for us to observe these areas and to do the needful, because collectively all of these, especially the substructure, have a very important role to play in the well-being of our structure, because the longevity of our structure is dependent on the solidity of our substructure, that is the foundation. So anything that will hamper that stability should be addressed timely, and appropriately, so that we can be able to have a formidable foundation at the end of the day. So attention should be paid critically in this area. So as the supervisor, the engineer on site, you must ensure that all of these are not ignored at site. Okay, so that we can be able to have a stable structure at the end of the day. Have it in mind that when we are building, okay, any structure, we are building for it to last, okay, for it to be stable and for it to last. So we are looking at stability and durability. Okay, these two components should be looked at critically, should be considered critically when we are building. Okay, in the area of stability, talks about the functionality of that structure, the serviceability of that structure. Okay, also the durability also is a function of the serviceability. So we must have it in mind that whatever we are building, we are not just building for it to, for that period of time. We are building for it to be durable. All right. We should ensure that the longevity of that structure is enhanced in our construction. That is how we can, imbibe a good, and that can be achieved by imbibing a good construction practice. So that is that for today. Thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you that has been online. Thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next episode. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you.